Hello, everybody. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending tonight to this Webmardi, the 2nd of January. So how we will proceed tonight will be as usual. We will introduce to you the Webmardi. Don't worry, I'll be really brief. And then we'll have the talk of Yannick, a talk about customer satisfaction. And then after the talk, we'll have our interview. So don't be afraid and ask your question directly on the chat of Twitch or YouTube. We will gather those questions and we'll ask them for you to Yannick. After this interview, we will close the Webmardi together and we'll announce the next event. So the Webmardi is made of 5 passionates. Thanks you, all of you, for doing those Webmardi, for making Webmardi as amazing as it is. So yeah, thank you for all of you guys. And yeah. Obviously, it's not only members, it's also money. So thank you to our gold sponsors, Leap and Jollycode. Leap is a Swiss agency based in, I will say, everywhere in Switzerland, and Jollycode is based in France and Lausanne. It's also a web agency. Thank you to our bronze sponsor too, CPNV, which is a school in Nouveau-Vaudois and is probably teaching the next speakers of Webmardi. So thank you to them too. Thank you to our partners who give us free access to softwares like JetBrains, Infomaniac, and Smashing Magazine. So yeah, thank you too. Well, I think I will introduce to you Yannick now. Hello, Yannick. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good afternoon. How are you?
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Well, I think I will give you the lead right now. So it's up to you. People enjoy the talk and see you after.
Well, thank you so much for, well, first of all, for the opportunity and for the introduction. Thank you very much for you that are here watching today and giving me the opportunity to speak about a topic that I'm extremely passionate about, which is customer experience. So my name is Yannick. I've worked for the Ritz-Carlton, which is a luxury hospitality chain, for about 12 years. I decided to quit in 2019, and I did my MBA here in Lausanne, which was an MBA in entrepreneurship. So today, I am the founder and CEO of BOI Excellence, which is a consulting company that helps its clients to really strengthen their customer success strategies and differentiate themselves from their competitors. And recently, via a partnership with Be Customer Smart, we also have a solution that uses a proprietary AI algorithm that can predict and quantify the impact of customer experience on the financial performance of a company. So talking about customer experience, it's a big topic. So obviously we won't have time to cover everything in 30 to 40 minutes. So what I really wanted to talk about today is how to re-engage a dissatisfied customer. So first we will try to understand what is a dissatisfied customer. When does a client of yours become disengaged? Then we will look into why is it so important for companies to focus on their customer experience, and definitely in the world we live in today. And thirdly, we'll look at how we can fix a problem effectively and how we can re-engage a dissatisfied customer. So somebody that's unhappy or a dissatisfied customer is he or she that experiences a gap between what is expected and what is experienced or perceived. And I place perceived here for a very, very, very important reason, is that the perception of your customer is your reality. And that is quite important to understand. I remember it didn't happen so long ago. There is a coffee shop I like to go to, and I once shared with the waitress that I very much enjoyed the little chocolate that came with the coffee. And for the next couple of days, she brought me 2 chocolates, which is something very small, but something quite good. It was something that was unique to me. It was one of my requests, one of my preferences. So I was very happy. So my expectation grew from having 1 piece of chocolate to 2 pieces of chocolate. And the danger is that a few days later, when I ordered a coffee, I just got 1 chocolate. And again, if you think about it from the standpoint of a company, did she really do something wrong? Not really, because the standard is to serve the coffee with the milk, the sugar, and then the chocolate. But because my expectation, because my perception of having a coffee there was to have 2 chocolates, that already created an opportunity. I was dissatisfied because what I experienced was not what I expected. Now, let's look at a few, at a few points on why is it so important that companies today focus on customer experience. Yeah, I have a few statistics here. One of my professors during my MBA class once told me that if you just share you're a statement and it's not backed up by data or fact, you're basically just a guy with an opinion. And he's right. So I promise to go through this quite quickly, but this is important for the purpose of the presentation. 89% of businesses are expected to compete mainly on customer experience. And this was a prediction from Gartner in 2015. They were spot on. It was incredible how they saw already this happening in 2015. 96% of consumers say that customer experience is an important factor in their choice of loyalty. So customers want an experience. They want something different. And that is what drives their loyalty. This will be the deciding factor between a customer coming back to you and buying again your product or service or going to somebody else. Thirdly, 1/3 of consumers say they would consider switching companies after just one instance of bad customer service. I will pause here for a second because that is huge. 1/3 of consumers. Now, the question that comes to mind is, if something goes wrong, did we lose that customer? Is there no opportunity to fix the problem and re-engage the customer? Yes, there is. And that is exactly what we're going to be looking to today. Because if you don't do it, as you can see here, 1/3 of your customers are never going to come back. 2/3 of the customers mentioned that a bad experience is their main reason for churn, which is the main reason why they do not come back to a specific brand or company. It's not necessarily the product, right? It is really the experience that comes with it. But only 1 out of 26 customers complain. And that is also an alarming fact. And we will speak about it a bit later, but it is so important to create a platform, an environment where the customers feel safe and have the opportunity to share as much feedback as possible. Because believe it or not, a customer that shares his dissatisfaction is a gift. It is an opportunity to re-engage the customer. And secondly, it is an opportunity to look back internally and say, why did this go wrong? What was the underlying problem here that I missed? So please embrace when a customer comes and complains to you, because it is valuable information. And last but not least, 88% of consumers are influenced by online reviews, which again, if you have a satisfied customer, he will post or he will share a very positive review about your brand or about your product. If he's dissatisfied, he will post it as well. And believe it or not, this is the business card of your company to the world. In addition to that, something that really accelerated how important customer experience is today is digitalization. And digitalization was one of the trends that was present pre-COVID, but it very much accelerated, which I'm sure you all experience firsthand because it affects all of us, not just the big companies. So with the acceleration in digitalization, the world became even more interconnected, which means that there is more availability of information, but also of substitute products. If I buy something and I don't like it, it is very easy for me to find a substitute product, whether it's a direct substitute or indirect substitute. To add to that, switching costs are extremely low. If you want to go from one company to the other, the effort required, or even the money required to do so, is minimal, which is an additional incentive for you to say, if I'm not happy, why don't I go look somewhere else? So if you add everything together, today, we have customers that have higher expectations, and we live in a world that is more competitive. And this is the main reason why today there is a need for improved customer experiences. Now, we understand what is a dissatisfied customer. We understand why it is important to focus on customer experience and putting the customer at the center of everything you do, creating a customer-centric culture. Now, let's look into how we can effectively resolve a problem that a customer experiences. First and foremost is measure the satisfaction of your customers. And there is a few ways that you can do that. But remember, I said before that 1 out of 26 customers will not complain. That's a lot. So if you do not provide a platform where customers can come and complain, you will miss a huge opportunity to take a customer that was about to step away and re-engage him to still remain one of your customers. And believe it or not, a dissatisfied customer that you can re-engage and make a brand promoter will become even more engaged with your company, spend more money, and recommend your company more than if it was just a customer that went where the stay was perfect and there was no real opportunity. I'm not saying that you must create problems to fix them, absolutely not. But when they happen, again, see them as a huge, huge, huge opportunity to turn that around and create an even more engaged customer. So there is a few ways that you can measure this. On the left-hand side, you can see this is a typical survey. Surveys are good. I think surveys are quite mainstream. The majority of the companies are using a customer feedback platform. You have Medallias, you have Gallup, you have Qualtrics, you have a few of those. And I was a big fan of surveys a few years ago because I work with them quite extensively. At the Ritz-Carlton, I was in charge of quality. So I was looking at surveys, verbatims. What was it? What did the customer say? What experience led to him scoring us better or worse on the intent to recommend of our company? So it is a good tool, but it is not enough, because unfortunately, as much as I like the application of a survey, there is also a few constraints working with them. And one of them is that the sample size is extremely low. Back in the Ritz-Carlton, we were looking at anywhere between 15 and 20% of customers that would answer. And that is a good number, believe it or not. But ultimately, using 20% of your customers, which is a very, very low sample size, plus the fact that most of the times when they do answer, they might be biased. They might be extremely satisfied and they want to share it, or they might be extremely dissatisfied and share it as well. So the authenticity of the feedback is questionable here. And thirdly, and most importantly, you depend on the willingness of the customer to answer. So just doing that, unfortunately, is not enough. The best recommendation I can give you is, as much as possible, definitely when you have a physical store or a hotel, or where you have the customer in front of you, is ask them, how are they doing? How is the stay so far? How is the experience? How is the coffee? How is the food? Whatever you're selling, just ask, seek for that feedback. It is extremely important because, like I said, 1 out of 26 will not speak. But if you approach him and you ask and you show that you genuinely care about his feedback, trust me, a lot of them will start talking, and you will hear positive feedback and you will hear negative feedback. And like I said, negative feedback is a gift. Remember that always. The third way, and this is where it gets a bit more tricky, but this was very important to us at the Ritz-Carlton, we would call this radar on, antenna up. Because oftentimes the customer might not share this with you verbally, but you can see, you can feel, you can sense that something is wrong. And I would remember when I was walking in the lobby, I could see from far away when, for example, there was a customer at the check-in desk or in the line that was not satisfied, or sitting having dinner, you could feel there was something wrong. And again, the power of approaching that person, introducing yourself and saying, how is everything going? Is there anything else that I can do to make your experience better? Is extremely valuable. So step one, measure and create a platform where your customers feel comfortable sharing that information with you. Why? Because if you look at this I took from some of the surveys that we did back in the day. And basically, the question is, did you experience a defect, yes or no? On the left-hand side, yes. On the right-hand side, no. And based on that answer, we look at the correlation with how satisfied or how engaged they were. And you can see here on the left-hand side that when a customer experiences a defect, only 28% of the customers is fully engaged. Now look at the second column. When they do not experience a defect, 60% of them. So again, it is extremely important that you understand this, because you can then make better decisions and say, is something wrong here? Are my customers experiencing too much problems? Or, and this is even more interesting, once they experience a problem, how many of those are still engaged? And this was the question that we were working on, because when you measure, you can look at this and you can say, how effectively did I resolve customer problems? Because if they have a defect and they're yet fully engaged, mission accomplished. But if you don't, something is wrong there. So this is, again, why it's so important. What you can measure, you can improve, right? And the second recommendation that I can also do is, we were asking which type of problems they experienced. Because it's good to know that a customer was dissatisfied, but just that is not enough, unfortunately, because yes, you will talk to him, you will try to fix the problem, you will re-engage him. But it is also as important that you look after the customer, that you look back internally and try to figure out what was the root cause of that problem. Because what you do not want to do is replicate or do exactly the same thing as you did with Mr. Smith, that was dissatisfied because of a noise problem, and not fixing the underlying problem of the noise problem, because then Mr. Smith number 2, 3, 4, number a million will have the same issue. So it's just taking you a lot of time, resources, energy, human capital, money to re-engage that customer. So not just because it's better and more effective to fix a problem, it is also important to take this information back and fix the root cause, because ultimately try to have as little defects as possible, right? It makes sense. Great. Now we get to the fun part, the how. So this is an acronym that we came up with, easy to remember. It spells learn, and those are basically the 5 steps that you must follow in order to effectively resolve a guest problem. The interesting thing here and the real differentiator between this approach and a standard approach is often they focus on the problem, what would be the right solution for that problem, and then thirdly is what is the right compensation to make sure the customer is happy. But the problem with this, it's transactional. You do not focus on the customer. You focus on the problem. And that, unfortunately, is not really the right approach. I've done for about 4 years a lot of quality improvement projects. It was in the Caribbean and Latin America, because there, out of all the regions in the world, we were having the lowest score. So our customers had problems, but they were the least satisfied with how we were resolving those problems. So we spent about 1.5 years doing extensive research, interviews. We really digged as deep as we could to understand what is driving the satisfaction of the customer with the resolution that we offer, in addition to just fixing the problem. That is why you see, for example, something here that's empathize. And empathy has nothing to do with the resolution, but it speaks about how you can connect with the customer, right? So we will look at all of those individual steps one by one. And like I said, I'm very happy to take the questions at the end of the presentation. So first is listen. No, actively listen. There is a difference. Very often we were faced with, I would say, repetitive issues, right? An example would be if you talk about hotels, the room wasn't cleaned, right? Or I don't know, you buy something online, the goods come to your house, it's destroyed, the packaging wasn't wrong, the order was wrong, but there is usually some repetitive issues. And what we often do is we will make an assumption, and the customer will listen to us and he will say, listen, my room wasn't cleaned. And in our mind, we're already thinking about, okay, what would be the perfect the problem resolution, the perfect solution to that problem. Don't do that yet. Do it, but not yet. Focus on the customer. Actively listen, because the better you understand the problem, the better you can fix it. The more personalized, the more tailored you can make the solution based on the problem that the customer is facing. So that is one thing. Secondly, is when you actively listen, the customer will feel that you genuinely care about his problem. Because when you're already thinking about what is the solution, you're not 100% focused on the customer. So please wait. Focus on the customer, actively listen, make sure he sees that you're paying attention to what he says, and really try to understand what the problem is. Secondly, and most importantly, never interrupt. Never interrupt or make excuses. And this is important, definitely in companies where you have a lot of departments working together. And I'll use again the hotel example. If a customer comes to the front desk and the room is not ready, you can say, well, I'm so sorry, but it's housekeeping fault because they didn't clean the room yet. And housekeeping can say, yeah, but it's the laundry mistake because they didn't give me the sheets or the towels that I need to do the room. And then the laundry guy can say, yes, but it's the problem of the valet because he didn't go pick up the clean. You see where I'm going with this. So it's a never-ending story. You are a sales representative in your company. You walk into the store. You have nothing to do with the operation. A customer comes to you and complain. You say, I am deeply sorry. And you take ownership and accountability of that problem. Thirdly is ask questions. This goes a bit hand in hand with actively listen. Asking questions is extremely important. One, you better understand the problem. And two, the same thing with actively listening is you show that you genuinely care to your customer. Oftentimes, after some years with the Ritz-Carlton, I was not necessarily dealing anymore with, my room is dirty or the smaller things in a way. And this is, maybe I'm using the wrong word because, it's the last point here is each problem is severe in the customer's eyes, right? So no problem is small, but some problems are easier to solve from a company standpoint. So ultimately, I ended up dealing with, I would say, bigger issues. And the problem that a lot of people had is they were not able to calm down the guest because he was screaming and he would not let us talk. And what I've learned is if you first of all actively listen, but then you say, Mr. Smith, thank you so much for sharing this opportunity with me. would you mind if I ask you a few questions, um, just to make sure that I better understand the problem that you're facing right now? This is magical, because again, the customer will say, "Oh, well, this person in front of me really cares here. He wants to understand more what's happening to me." So asking questions is extremely important. In addition, what you can do is taking notes. I always had a little notebook in my pocket, and when I had to deal with a customer problem, I would go and I would say, "Do you mind if I ask a few questions?" I would get it out and start taking notes. Wonderful. It's a bit in the presentation, it's a bit the show, but believe it or not, it makes sense. And often, if the problem is really a severe problem that takes, quite some time to fix, the fact that you took notes and the fact that you have something tangible to go back to is quite important. So asking questions and taking notes is something that you must do. Body language plays a big role, of course. If I were to talk to you like this, or if I were looking away, you don't feel as engaged with me as if I were looking at you, right in the eyes, in the camera here. If my body language is open, I'm paying attention to what you say, I'm taking notes, I'm nodding, which shows that I'm understanding what you say, is also very important. And ultimately, don't forget, each customer is unique and each problem is severe in the customer eyes. The example I was always sharing when I was when I do workshops, so somebody might call down and say, "Yes, my Wi-Fi is not working in the room." We had this often, and you're like, "Okay, the Wi-Fi doesn't work. Everybody is 4G and things," but you don't know what that person must do with the Wi-Fi. For example, I'm doing this presentation now, and Wi-Fi just became extremely important to me. Whereas before the talk, it wasn't that important. If it doesn't work, who cares? But if my Wi-Fi is not optimal right now, I cannot deliver this presentation. So again, don't think because a problem might not be severe, it is not severe in the customer's eyes. Great. Then empathize. And this is really where the sweet science comes into play. This is really, I would say, the psychological side of fixing a problem, because you have the technical side and then you really have the human side of fixing it. And based on the study that we did with those 7 hotels in the Caribbean, there was 2 factors that were driving the satisfaction of a fixed problem the most. And the first one is this. We'll get to the second one, but the first one was showing empathy. I don't need to define what empathy is. You want to identify yourself, with the other person's feelings. You want to connect emotionally with him. Easier said than done. It is extremely difficult to do. But there is a few things that you can do. There is a few tricks. And the most important thing that you must do here is don't say, "I understand." Because that is a typical answer. "Oh, I'm so sorry, I understand." No, you don't. You actually don't. You don't have a talk that you have to do in the next 15 minutes. Your Wi-Fi is not an issue to you. It's an issue to me. You do not understand what I'm going through. So be very careful, because this is usually, what we use. Instead of saying, I understand, what you want to try to do is find common ground. Something, the way I learned this is, I think my second property was in Aruba. My third property was in Aruba, and we had a lot of flights coming from the US, and they were getting in around 11 o'clock in the morning. It was an early flight from New York. So customers would come in 11 a.m. I think it was about a 6-hour flight. They left at 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, the journey is already challenging. So again, my empathy starts where? I understand. I'm not saying this to him, but I do understand how much of an issue it must have been to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, take a taxi, go to get the plane, wait there for 2 hours, 3 hours. Sometimes it's delayed. I mean, the one thing you want is get to the hotel, check in, go to your room, and relax. So you come to the front desk, everything goes well. Can I have your credit card, your ID? And suddenly you say, "I'm so sorry, Mr. Smith, but unfortunately the room is not ready yet." And when I said it in the beginning, I didn't feel too bad about it, because our check-in time, the standard, was 4 p.m. But remember, the perception of the customer is your reality. The fact that it's 4 p.m. is good and great, and it's perfect, and it's there for a reason, because if customer checks out at 2 or at 1, you obviously want enough time to turn the room and have it good and clean for the next customer. But he just traveled for 12 hours. He's tired. His kid is screaming. The wife is annoyed because she wants to get to the room. And you go there and I say, "Listen, I'm so sorry, but the room is not ready." So They're saying, I understand, that's what I did. He told me, no, you don't, because you didn't take a flight for 12 hours, you don't have a screaming kid, and you don't have an annoying wife. And this real example spoke to me because this is exactly how it happened. And there I learned the hard way. But I learned that it's not enough to just look at, I would say, the standard and saying, yes, but with us, this is how we do it. It doesn't really look into how does the customer feel and what is his perception. So here, the trick is to find common ground. I have traveled, not as far as him, not with a screaming kid and with an annoying wife, but I have traveled and I've had to wait for 4 or 5 hours to get into my room. So when I connected with him emotionally, I just told him the story and I said, Mr. Smith, accept my sincerest apologies. And believe it or not, I don't come from New York. I didn't have a 12-hour flight behind me. But a few months ago, I traveled to Qatar and I got there like you in the morning and they made me wait for 4 hours. It was a long 4 hours. And so I really feel how you must feel right now. But allow me to see what I can do for you. So you don't necessarily focus too much on, I understand, and I'm sorry, and you don't provide a solution. You focus on the common ground. Once you connect emotionally and he starts seeing that really you can feel what he feels and you can really understand the situation is in, that is where magic starts happening. So it's about finding common ground. What is the thing that connects you both? And you must make sure that you focus on that, because the problem is easier to be solved once you have that relationship, once you have that emotional connection with your customer. If you can do this, it will calm the customer and it will demonstrate that you genuinely care about his problem and that you're there to fix it for him. Then apologize. Two things that I can say here is use I statements. Again, you want to show ownership. Like I said before, if you say, oh, we're very sorry that this happened, it's okay. But say, I am very sorry this happened to you, Mr. Smith. My name is Yannick, and I will make sure that I can fix this for you. Which is the second point. A sincere apology, and you use your own name. And I think I forgot to mention it here. You want to mention the customer's name also whenever possible. I'm not saying as much as possible, but that really helps build that emotional connection with him. Here, once you apologize, the important thing to say is your name. Because put yourself in the shoes of the customer. He's upset, the room is not ready, he doesn't really know what's going to happen to him, but he knows one thing. He likes Yannick, and he knows Yannick is looking after him. That gives him a sense of, I would say, peace in a way, because he knows somebody is trying to get this resolved for him. So that I statement and providing your name to build that emotional connection is extremely important. Now we resolve. Do you see, ladies and gentlemen, how long I have been talking? And we haven't yet got to the point where you fix the problem. Fixing the problem is important, but it is not the most important. So when you resolve the problem, first of all, is you want to communicate urgency. Because I can assure you, the time that the customer waits is way longer than the time that it takes you, that you feel it takes you to fix. So, we would always say in the Ritz-Carlton, when you have a customer opportunity, you drop everything. Sometimes not possible, but that is really the message. Customer first. If he has an issue, that becomes your top priority. And if you cannot deal with it, ask for help, right? But you must communicate urgency. Secondly, is keep the customer informed. And this is really, really important. And the perfect example that comes to mind, this was my first hotel. And I was off for a few days, and a lady came to the front desk, and she was very upset. And she said, yes, nobody followed up. You guys don't care. So I followed the steps. I apologized. I showed empathy. And I said, please, share with me, what happened. My name is Yannick, and I will personally look into solving this problem for you. And so basically, she had a baby, and the baby had one of those, doudous that the baby sleeps with. She was a newborn, and we lost it. When housekeeping goes into the room, we take the linen, and it was white, so we lost it. Long story short, this was at 7 a.m. At 8 a.m., I started investigating, and all the people I talked to tell me, listen, we have done this already. The day before, my colleagues, which is not surprising, they did everything that I was planning on doing to try to find it. One thing they didn't do was look in the trash. We spoke to our outsourced laundry company. We looked everywhere inside of the hotel. We looked in the floor and the elevator landings where housekeeping keeps stuff. We looked in lost and found. We went everywhere, except the garbage, the trash. We had huge containers. So I went in. So if I ask you now, and I'm sure your answer is going to be yes, Is this going above and beyond to try to fix the problem for the customer? I believe so. But guess what happened? She came to the front desk around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I've never seen somebody that upset. Well, in the beginning, I wasn't there, but she was very upset. Why? Because in her mind, she spoke to me at 7. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And what have we done about it? Zero. That's her perception. That's what she thinks. I was in the trash looking for it. So the learning point here is, if I were to have informed her, things would have been very different. If I call her at 12 and I say, listen, Mrs. Smith, I haven't found it yet, but I'm on it. We have done 1, 2, 3. It's not there. What I'm thinking of doing now is 1, 2, 3. So I keep her informed. She knows I'm working on it. So even though I don't have a solution for her, it's okay, because I'm managing her expectations. So always make sure to keep your customer informed. Understand the customer needs and offer options. This is quite important, because remember when I said that, often companies, what they do is they say, if this is the problem, this is the remedy or the suggested answer or solution that you must provide. And nowadays, often and even our AI platform does this, right? So once we identify the root cause, we say this would be, a suggested resolution. But it's not always right, because we're all different. When often I would hear it that the customer would say my room wasn't cleaned, and I hear, oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Smith, let me send somebody to clean your room. But you basically go off the assumption that it is convenient for Mr. Smith to be disturbed now for his room to be cleaned. How do you know? It's 5:30, maybe he has dinner reservations at 6 or 6:30, he must get ready, he must take a shower. So don't make that assumption. Understand the needs of your customer and offer options. So my suggestion here is just, I would follow the steps and I would say, Mr. Smith, there is a few things that we can do. What do you prefer? I can send somebody now. I can have just, soap and fresh towels sent to your room so you can get ready for your dinner. And once you're out of the room, instead of doing turn down service, we would come and do a full cleaning. Or, we'll do it tomorrow. The options are there for the customer to decide. So don't be afraid, again, to ask. And I would do this quite often, because again, it shows that you're willing to go and to do anything to just accommodate the request of the customer, instead of just saying, oh, you had this, let me do this. Oh, my AC is not working, let me send you an engineer. No, first, again, apologize, listen, ask questions, try to understand. But what is the most convenient? Should I send somebody now? Would you like for me to look into a room move? Perhaps you would like to go to work with your customer on the solution. Co-create it together, and I can assure you he will be 10 times more engaged if you do that. Under promise and over deliver. Everybody's quite acquainted with this. You want to manage the expectations of the customer. I can have this result for you by 6 o'clock tonight, when by 3 or 4 o'clock it should be done. You call him at 4:30, you say, Mrs. Smith, it's done. He's blown away, because you fixed it, and you fixed it quicker than what you said. That is an easy thing to do, and it's so impactful. So always remember this: under promise and over deliver. Even if you can do it better and quicker, manage his expectations, and he will be wowed at the end. And this is exactly the last point: exceed your customer's expectations, creating a wow moment. And basically, the how is, if you have a customer expectation, anything you do that exceeds his expectation is a wow moment. Anything you do that is below his expectations is a dissatisfied customer, is a customer problem or a customer opportunity, like we're discussing now. So use this opportunity to work with the customer to create a wow moment. And here, with this slide, what I really want to highlight is there is different levels of complexity. We would call them essential wows, which is the easiest. And all the way to the right-hand side, you have legendary wows, which take more time, effort, energy, more money also to do. My point here is that if you look, for example, on the picture at the left-hand side, this is tea with a personalized note. I'm sure the person called down, said that she wasn't feeling well, or the housekeeper went to the room, saw a lot of used tissues. Remember, radar on, antennas up. The customer doesn't need to sit. We can see it. If the room is full of tissues, there is maybe some medicine. It's as easy to take honey, tea, water, personalized note. Mrs. Smith, I noticed that you were not feeling well. Here is some tea. Let me know if there is anything else. My name is Yannick. Enjoy the rest of your day. Super powerful. Extremely impactful. Small, but yet impactful. Why? Expected, exceeded the expectations. So please use this as an opportunity to create that wow moment. And then last but not least is notify. Notify two ways. First, your customer. Very important. Close the loop. Closing the loop means this. It started with the customer saying he's not happy. You need to close this by the customer telling you, I am happy. That is the only way you can say the problem has been fixed for the customer. When he tells you, I'm good right now. Why am I saying this? Again, I learned the difficult way. A customer came to me 8 o'clock in the morning and said, my door doesn't close anymore, the door of his room. Imagine, valuable items, it's his house, that's his home away from home. I called engineering department and I said, listen, guys, this is happening. They're like, okay, no problem, I'll take care of it. I forgot about it. 6 o'clock, the customer comes to the front desk and shouts at me and says, what have you done? And the thing is, I thought it was fixed because the engineering department told me, yeah, it's done, but I did not notify the customer. I did not engage the customer. If I would have called him, he would have told me, no, it's not fixed. But again, this is not, before this, I would have called engineering and said, hey guys, were you able to fix it, right? And then you can call the customer and say, are you satisfied with the resolution? If he tells you, yes, I am, the loop is closed. Once you have done this, what is important is to constantly keep on offering further assistance. Because like I said, you really want to provide a platform where the customer feels comfortable. So once he tells you, I'm happy, thank you very much for fixing this, you can say, well, it was my pleasure. Once again, my sincerest apologies. If there is anything else that I can do for you, my name is Yannick. Feel free to reach out and I will be delighted to assist you. Again, personalized, emotional, name usage. He knows you're there. He feels comfortable and he feels, looked after. And then the internal way of notifying, which is also very important, is record this problem in a customer database. What you don't want is that a customer comes to your store, your hotel, has an issue with, let's say, the food was too cold, and then the next time he comes and he has the same issue. If you have that piece of information in a customer database, you know that Mrs. Smith is coming back next week. You can have special attention in making sure that the same problem doesn't happen a second time. Because if it does, I can assure you, fixing it will become exponentially more complicated. So please make sure that it doesn't have the same problem happening often. It's quite important. So here you have it once again. Learn. This is the acronym that you can follow to effectively resolve a customer problem. But this is not it. And before we go to the conclusion, I want to highlight one thing, and we haven't talked about it yet. What about money? What about compensation? You always hear, yes, you must compensate and give this for free. And right now, you have fixed the customer's problem up to his expectations, or you even exceeded his expectations. Good job. It didn't cost you anything. But is this enough? That is the real question. The answer is no. Because even if you fix the problem following the learn process, he will be satisfied or extremely satisfied with the way you solve the problem. But the fact is, the relationship between you and your brand or your company or even you is broken because he came and he experienced a problem. So just fixing the problem and saying, okay, perfect, Mrs. Smith, thank you, and not talk to him anymore for 3 days until he checks out, he will never be a fully engaged customer. He will not. Because the second most important thing, and this is the second psychological thing that I was talking about, besides empathy, it's fixing the relationship. And that is where this comes in. And here I want to take away the myth of saying, the more you give, the higher the compensation, the more satisfied the customer. This is completely wrong. It's not true. The most thoughtful the gesture to fix the relationship, the most personalized it is, the most impactful it will be. That same example of the lady that lost our little teddy bear of the kid, we gave her the first 2 nights free of charge, $3,000 each, $6,000 for free. She was hysterical. What did we do? Because we couldn't find it. We bought something quite similar. The seamstresses did a great job. They did a few things here and there to make it look like the teddy bear from the baby. We brought it to the golf course, to the spa, to the beach, and we took pictures. And we create like a small scrapbook. And we said, I think the name was Frankie, if I'm not mistaken. We said, hey, Frankie left because he as well wants to enjoy his vacation. And we just took those pictures. We wrote a few things next to it. Oh, I'm enjoying the pool. I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying that. We took pictures with the staff and we brought this to the lady. one of the most beautiful moments I've ever experienced. She cried, and you could see, and she said, guys, thank you for caring. What did it cost us? A few pictures, 2 hours time, and $3 for the teddy bear versus $6,000, because what we did was thoughtful and personalized, right? And it's not just about the money. So learn, you follow the steps. Once he tells you it's fixed, yes, I'm happy, thank you. No, you do something additional. You do that, you go above and beyond, that unexpected thing, that thoughtful gesture, that personalized gift. It doesn't need to be expensive, but it needs to be personalized. If you do that, I can assure you, you will have a satisfied customer, and you will have a brand promoter. He will come back, he will spend more money, he will talk to his friends and family, and ultimately it will be very good for your business. So thank you very much, guys. This is my LinkedIn, my email address, my website. I'm very happy to continue the conversation with you offline. I'm very passionate about this. So again, thank you so much for taking the time, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Well, thank you, Yannick. Thank you very much. It was very, very instructive. And we have some questions for you right now. So we passed the interview. Before we do the interview, just people don't worry to still ask questions on the chat. We have some few people back that will get those questions, and we'll put them on the queue. So don't worry, ask them. I have some questions for you. The first one is here. Do you have any tools to measure the customer satisfaction? But I mean, not the tool I can find at the Migros, the big button stuff, but some digital tools.
Of course, absolutely. The most common tool is the typical customer survey platform. Like I said before, Medallia, Zenloop, Qualtrics. What they do is, after the customer leaves your store, uses a product, uses one of your services, they send them a survey. Usually it's 24 to 48 hours after, and they ask them a few questions on the experience. So that is one way, and that is a good way, because you quantify it, right? You have number, you can measure if what you have done has improved satisfaction or has decreased satisfaction. So that is for me a must-have for any company that understands the value of customer experience. Is it enough? It is not. This must be combined with talking to your customer, paying attention to how they feel, and engaging them in asking, how is your stay so far? And then you have some qualitative, you have some quantitative data, and together you have a nice picture of your customer satisfaction.
Yeah, it's kind of related with my next question. This is, how do you ask for customer feedback on an online tool? Because you often have this kind of pop-up or emails sending back to you when you buy something or shop, but I don't feel it like the correct way. Do you have any tricks or things we should avoid?
That's a very, very good question. Obviously, when you have the customer in front of you, it's the easiest. It's the best way of doing it. So that's online. So I mean, first of all, the same answer I gave you before applies here, right? Because the journey that the customer goes through, whether it's physical or digital, the questions that we will ask him, can very much relate. Now, and I don't want to pitch here, but what we do now with Be Customer Smart is we use the survey data and operational data. So we will look at behavior and patterns based on one specific experience. How did this affect his spending, for example? And we can create a correlation, and with this we can quantify the impact of each of those touch points, online or offline, and this will then tell us what has been the impact on your satisfaction scores. And the question makes sense, because this is something that a lot of people need, because it is not something that is mainstream, hence why the question. And this is quite exciting, because we saw the pain points and we're providing a solution to that problem exactly.
And so how do you, still related, but how do you measure customer engagement? What do you put in place? Do you have, I don't know, keys or stuff too?
Yeah, there is a different metrics that you can use. The most common one definitely today is something that's called the NPS, the Net Promoter Score. And basically it's a question that you go from 1 to 10, and it's how likely are you to recommend product X or service Y to your relatives, to friends and family. Because If you just say, I was satisfied, it's good. But you're not a promoter necessarily because I am satisfied. But if you answer a 10 out of a 10 or a 9 out of a 10, which means you are a promoter that you are likely to recommend, obviously this makes more sense to the business. So you can look at customer satisfaction. You can look at overall satisfaction with problem resolution, overall satisfaction with first person problem resolution. There is a million metrics that you can use. So I would say NPS for sure. It is an important metric. And then see what is important to you. That is why I'm saying, if you feel that there is something wrong and that you feel that the way you're solving the problem is not good enough, start measuring this and create a KPI and a metric that says, how satisfied are my customers with the resolution that we provided them? So the possibilities are endless, but NPS, the Net Promoter Score, the intent to recommend, is the most commonly used metric.
The go-to, yeah. Okay, thanks. And how do you, applying all those tricks, all those stuff you just talk to us, very time consuming, I think. So how do you apply it when you already have a lot of work to deal with?
When you say applying
for example, in an agency, when you have to deal with customers supporting, and you also have your job as developers or designer or whatever you do, how do you deal with all the stuff? How do you do? How
I mean, I think that the first problem there is that the culture is wrong. Your customer should be a focus point for everybody within the industry. That is the first thing, because if this is how it is, everything is built around providing you a platform and the tools necessary, in order to be able to get the job done. So that is one. Secondly, this is again one of the main reasons why we are stepping into more of the tech side of customer experience with the company, because this is something that we hear often. We don't have the resources, whether it's financial, but often it's human capital. We don't have the people. Don't get me wrong, the technology is not necessarily the solution. It's an enabler. Yeah. The solution is the culture and building a foundation that will bring everybody together with the same goal of looking after the customer. And if you build everything around that, you can use a tool to make it more effective and more efficient.
Okay, yeah, you're right. And maybe it's a tricky question, but how can you apply the L of learn on a digital tool?
Great question. There is two ways. If you're lucky and he speaks to you, so there is a verbatim, so he answered a survey, he left a comment on social media, that is him talking to you, right? That is already the first thing. What we would do here when this happens, definitely online on social media, one of us would go and publicly publish, we're very sorry, we look forward to speaking with you, right, on finding a resolution. So we want to publish to the world every single comment that comes. We're on top of it because our customers are important. And then we try to take the conversation offline through phone if possible, and then it's easier to apply the things, right? That's one. Secondly, your learn is analytics. It is, when a customer comes and let's say if you sell products online, and the majority of the time the customer is spending time on the let's say the info or who we are page, and then they go to the page where all the products are listed, and he spends 3 seconds there. That is the listen. There is something wrong here. So then you must seek the feedback and say, okay, but why is he not spending more time there? So that would be the two things.
Yeah. Okay. A question from the chat. How can you temporize your answer to the customer, for example, to delay the resolution expectation or for days or weeks? How do you do that? How do you notify?
Yeah, well, let me start by this. The resolution shouldn't take days nor weeks. We had one of the most important metrics for us was first person problem resolution, because we wanted the problem to get fixed right away. It's cheaper. Trust me, it's cheaper if you do it right away. But then it takes time, and you talk to more people, and the problem becomes bigger, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to, and this is again a culture thing, you want to provide the tools and the support to empower your people to make those type of decisions first line. The ones that are speaking to the customer must have the support and the tools and the decision power necessary to fix it. And this was quite important to us. We would never say this was the wrong decision. We would always say thank you for owning and fixing, even if it was completely wrong. we appreciate you taking the initiative. It is, because otherwise, if you say this is wrong, people will start, taking the initiative to making those type of decisions. So that is one. So please do not delay it for so long. That would be the first thing. If you do, what is important is, like we said, to keep the customer informed. If you need, for one thing that comes to mind, we had this sometimes when we needed, for example, theft. So we had to do an internal investigation. We had to look at cameras and all of this. There, we were putting it to claims. It wasn't us managing it. It was a specific department. But there, it's just every few couple of days, just a quick update. How are you doing? This is what we've done. This is where we are. We'll keep you posted. Just because then at least the most important thing is that the customer knows that you're working on something. Trust me. As long as you're trying to fix it, he will be more willing to wait than if he feels like, yeah, nobody's caring enough to fix this for me.
Yeah. Okay. Two questions last. Do you have any top memorable customer service from any company?
Oh, just from Ritz-Carlton. There is, every single morning we would read what we call the commitment to quality. And in the commitment to quality, so everybody, CEO to dishwasher, would read that commitment to quality. It was a packet. And there we always shared a wow story that came from any of the properties of the Ritz-Carlton. So we would read and we would get inspired what other hotels were doing. One thing that I was lucky enough to be part, and this is a bit of a sad story, but it was just so beautiful. In Aruba, we had a family that came with their daughter, which was quite ill, terminally ill. She had about 2 weeks more to live, imagine. And she wanted to come and stay one last time at our hotel. And I don't think he's watching, but Shark Gario, shout out to you, because he was the gentleman driving the story. He just, an entire week, she was a princess. And so I remember the first day, she's a huge fan of Kiss, the rock band. And in the room, we built a stage. We put Kiss posters everywhere. We had a microphone. There was like a small audience. We had T-shirts. And when she walked in, I have goosebumps when I think about it. And so we have done everything. The second day on the beach, we had her write down words on piece of paper. We put them to balloons on the beach. We burn and we let them fly. And every single day we have done things like this. It was just, and this is something that happens regularly in all of the Ritz-Carlton properties. And this is how you create a customer for life. I mean, it's incredible.
Obviously, yeah. Obviously. Another question from the chat, I think, it just appears for me. How could be the best approach to share customer service experience with the internal team?
I think that the gentleman or lady is referring to the notify part of the presentation. There is many ways that you can do it. What we had a specific tool for it, a database that was called Mystique. Again, you remember when I speak about having the culture and the tools to do it, it's easier for us, right? Because we would just quickly put this in there and all the departments would receive the notification that this customer had a negative experience. What did we do? How much money did it cost us? And then again, the next day in the morning, CEO to dishwasher, we would read all of those incidents. So everybody in the hotel would know that Yannick had a problem with X. So that is the best way, because again, customer centric, we make sure that we have the tools to do a job. Some people do an Excel, a simple Excel. They put the name, what happened, the resolution, and at the end of the day, they send it. Some people do a group chat. Some people use Slack. I think that the possibilities are endless. The most important thing is that you create a way where this gets to the right people, and it's quick and efficient to read and quick to do. So everybody, boom, knows, okay, I must be careful because Mrs. Smith had this. That is really the purpose, but you can use many tools.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Our last question for tonight. Do you have any sources, books, links, conferences to help us going further on the topic?
Yeah, send me an email and we can talk.
Yeah, maybe you can put it on Twitter or on just adding the Webmardi so we can retweet.
Sure. One book that comes to mind right away that is quite important to luxury hospitality professionals is a book by Horst Schulze, and I'll give everything to you later so we can share perhaps. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's Excellence Wins, and it really speaks about the customer and going above and beyond. Some of the things I'm sure that I said you will find back in the book because it was a huge inspiration for me. But that is a good, I would say, first step to start and get more acquainted to the world of customer and customer centricity.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, just drop us a line on Twitter and we'll retweet. Cool. Well, thank you very much, Yannick, for this talk. Thank you for
You're
your
welcome.
time.
You're welcome.
We'll now close the Webmardi. So people, let's finish and closing this Webmardi together by announcing the next one. So the next Webmardi will be in March. It will still be online. We hope it will be the last event we will held online. Maybe we'll be back physical event after that in April. It will be about Unix and will be in French. So be aware it's not will be in English. It's maybe more technical, I think, but more for beginners technical. Maybe some seniors developers will learn some stuff. So it could be still interesting. So if you know developers or people interested in IT, just give them the link to the YouTube of Webmardi. I'm pretty sure they will be interested about this talk. We want to share one of the opportunity from one of our gold sponsors, Jolly Code, which is a web agency in Lausanne, and they're looking for talented people in every field. So feel free to drop them a line on jollycode.ch/jobs and tell them that you come from the Webmardi. It always helps, I'm pretty sure. Still, don't forget to follow the Webmardi so you will be able to be notified from the next live event we will hold. And obviously, even if we will go for the physical event, you can still follow us and watch the live of our event. And you can still see every past event on YouTube. So yeah, follow the page, please. And follow us on Instagram. We will post many photos when we do physical event. And when we don't do physical event, we post throwbacks and quotes from the speakers from the last talk. So we still have some content. So please follow us and let's chat together. One last thing, if you don't already have, you can subscribe to our newsletter. We don't spam people with emails. We just send one email by month with the next event. So if you are really interested to just follow up passively the Webmardi's communication, just subscribe to the newsletter. You will get a mail with the next event every month. It's, I think, the easier way to follow us directly. Well, I think I said everything I had to say and share with you. I will now close this Webmardi and Hopla. Well, thank you everybody for attending tonight and have a great day or night. Bye-bye.